Hey everyone, and welcome to my final and fourth Sabbat series of videos. So, if you haven't already seen these, basically all this year, 2022, I've been learning about the Sabbats, and as I'm learning about them, I'm trying to practice some of them, see if any of them can become new family traditions for me and my family, and I'm taking you along our journey. So this video is the last two Sabbats of the year. It's actually technically the start of the wheel of the year, which is what these Sabbats are called, but these are the last two in like the calendar year. So we've got Samhain and Yule. Now, taking it a step back, just to explain kind of what the Sabbats are, the Sabbats are something that neo-pagans, pagans, and Wiccans celebrate. Not all of them celebrate it, and you don't have to be of those spiritualities to celebrate it yourself. A lot of these, actually, specifically in this video, they are two Sabbats that almost everybody celebrates. We've got Halloween and Christmas. We're going to get more into that later. But anyone can jump in and start to celebrate these. So in these videos, I go over all the rituals, all of the old ways, all of the new ways that they are celebrated, and some crafts, recipes, a bunch of things that you can do. Now, if you want a fuller explanation of all of the Sabbats, I would recommend checking out the first video, because I'm only going to give you just a brief reminder of what they are. So basically, we have 8 Sabbats. It's called the Wheel of the Year. The Wheel of the Year technically starts at Samhain, which is Halloween, as most of us know. 4 of these are called the Greater Sabbats. 4 of them are the Lesser Sabbats. 4 of them are fire festivals, and 4 of them are solar-related festivals. The lesser Sabbats, which are, the spring equinox, the fall equinox, summer, and winter, those are all going to be your lesser Sabbats, and those happen every quarter. The other Sabbats, which are fire festivals, are going to happen in between those, so they are called cross quarters, and they are called the greater Sabbats. It seems like the greater and the lesser should be switched. I don't get that part. That's just what it is. Now, my hope here is that every time that a Sabbat comes up, you can come back to my video, refer to it. Honestly, I would grab the Llewellyn books that I have listed down below so that you can learn about each of these Sabbats, and basically make sure to watch all 4 of them so that you know what each are about and how they all fit into the Wheel of the Year. So after this one, you could technically jump right back to the first one for the winter season. So for those of us in the northern hemisphere, we are actually getting colder. We're going from fall into winter. However, those of you in the southern hemisphere, opposite is happening, right? You are going from spring into summer. So different things are happening in different places. Just know that if you're in the southern hemisphere, you might need to watch the opposite of these videos. So let's jump into one of my favorite seasons and a Sabbat I have already unknowingly celebrated, Samhain. It's Monday, it's Halloween, we're recovering from a weekend of like parties and stuff, but today we're gonna celebrate Samhain. We've actually been celebrating it for a while, but that's gonna be a little bit different in this video. A lot of the footage, you might see us wearing different clothes, it might be at different times of the day. That's mostly because we had to film like several times throughout the month of October. So again, how I'm learning about these Sabbats is through the Llewellyn Sabbat series. This is the Samhain one, the Samhain book. So I've read it through. A lot of the information in this video comes from these books and from me kind of learning and doing a lot of the things in here. So Samhain is actually technically the start of this Wheel of the Year. This is like when this year starts for Wiccans, pagans, neo-pagans. It's the 3rd harvest festival and the last harvest. This is when you're getting the last of your crops up. No more harvest. So this is when your livestock is slaughtered. You're kind of winding down for the rest of the winter. And it's basically the dark half of the year. We're going into introspection. We're going inwards. We're not so much outwards. I'm ready to hermit up. It seems perfectly timed with the weather. It's also called the Witch's New Year, and it's kind of like the season where the crone comes out, you know, the maiden mother crone. This is the crone season. It's getting colder, the leaves are changing. In Gaelic, Samhain literally means summer's end. Gaelic is Celtic, Irish, by the way. The whole idea of Samhain actually comes from Ireland. We can thank the Irish, the Celts, for this season. In a more traditional sense, people might have used to celebrate this on the first full moon after the first frost of October. Nowadays, witches might celebrate it closer to whatever the closest full moon is to October 31st. Most people nowadays just do it on October 31st, also tons of stuff leading up to it. But yeah, it's basically time for winter. It's time to sacrifice. There is a lot of like death, a lot of things starting to die, getting ready for winter. We have to decide, do we want to save crops? Do we want to put them away? Do we want to let them go? Do we want to eat them now? So that's kind of where this idea of sacrifice came from. And usually on the night of Samhain, what a lot of people would do is they would light their fire. Well, sometimes they would have like the community fire lit and then they'd go light their own fire. But the point was you have to keep your fire lit the whole entire night to protect yourself. So there is so many cool things about Samhain. A lot of it you probably already know, but I'm going to jump into all the details, all of the traditions that go into this holiday as we do it ourselves for this October. Are you helping Mom punch out all the pieces? Good job. Wow. Are those like cocoa? This season, you've probably heard it before, the veil is thinning. So a lot of people literally think that the veil thins, so it's easier for us to communicate with the dead, and them having an easier time communicating with us. Now, this basically means our ancestors are around a lot more. Good spirits are coming through, but also bad spirits can be coming through. And one of the beliefs is actually that the goddess Persephone, who was stolen by Hades, basically went to the underworld during this time period. She spends half the year in the underworld, the other half above. And so during this time period, what a lot of people would do is they'd put out food for their ancestors. It's really common to have a more solemn kind of serious Samhain. You know, obviously the holiday is filled with like fun, trick-or-treating, you know, revelry, all of that good stuff, but it's also like a time to sit in silence. So a lot of people would create meals for their ancestors, sit in silence, wait for any like phenomenon to happen and kind of take that as a sign that maybe someone is still around. So nowadays, you know, you might have the more reverent Samhain, the night of, where you might actually light a candle and have kind of a quiet, solemn family tradition, whereas like Halloween might be like the silly version of that. A lot of us know about the Mexican tradition of Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. This was actually, there's a lot of cool history about this in the book. I'd highly check it out. But the reason why we decided to make an ofrenda and kind of go with the theming of the Mexican Day of the Dead was because my son just loves cocoa, So we decided we would just kind of do this, and we built a little ofrenda. It was super cute. I thought that this was gonna be a lot bigger than it was. So I kind of switch things around. We decided to paint some skulls and add it to like an altar, and I decided to print out some photos of the family members that we know that have been deceased, and we decided to kind of like sit around and light a candle, not the night of Halloween but the night before, and kind of just talk, share stories about these family members, honor them, see if anything cool happened. But this is one thing you can easily add to your Halloween traditions. Literally just start an altar, start putting photos of your family members around it. You can put their favorite mementos, their favorite food. You can cook them a meal that night, and just light a candle and honor them, talk about them for the night. I wish I would have done this sooner, but I'm so glad we did. And I think every single year I'll kind of make this altar a little bit more elaborate. I'll kind of store it with our Halloween decorations, and I think it'll just be something special to our family that's just not what everyone else does for Halloween. This is like my favorite part of fall, is looking out this window and seeing this bright red tree. My phone doesn't do it justice, but I've been out there before and I've taken photos around it because it's so pretty. But I love that tree. Now, with the whole idea of the veil thinning during this time, there was a lot of people that believed that Fae would come screw with their stuff, and so they would do a lot of protective things to make sure that the Fae didn't screw with them during Halloween. So in Wales and Scotland, what they would do is they would light fires and put it around the boundaries of their properties to scare off their fairies, but also to welcome ancestors. And as they were doing this, they wore turnips on strings and they put little glowing coals inside. And this also had to do with like an old legend, the legend of Old Jack. But this is where we got our idea of like carving pumpkins. So when these people kind of migrated over to America, turnips weren't like as available. Pumpkins were. So that's where you get the idea of carving pumpkins. And I thought that was so cool. So obviously pumpkin carving is something that you can do during this time. Lots of people do this. This is not like anything new. Maybe if you're not in the US, but this is a tradition I think a ton of people celebrate, but they don't even know why they're doing it. Now, this time of year is my absolute busiest, and that's because as a psychic, as a medium, there's a ton of people that have Halloween parties and they want to hire me to come and do readings. So this year I did a spirit circle with a fun little girls group. I also did a witches party. It was all women. They all showed up to kind of do a Halloween party, just them and their girlfriends, and I read there as well. That was a ton of fun. I also did my own spirit circle that was virtual because I have so many of you followers that would probably love to get in person with me for events. So I did a virtual spirit circle. I had so much fun with that. Definitely going to do that again next year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And I did one more party right before a Halloween weekend. If you want to see more of like how that whole thing went out, I have a short video that you can see linked below. And that is one way that you can celebrate. Part of Halloween is getting into divination, getting into, speaking with the spirits, your loved ones, and kind of taking advantage of that veil thinning. Now, if you don't want to do this yourself, you can also hire a psychic at a party. If you've never done it, I highly recommend it. I really think it just adds so much more fun to your guests. Halloween is a fantastic time of the year that you can support your local psychics and mediums. Other ways you can celebrate during this time of year, obviously haunted houses. That's something you can take advantage of. Going on ghost tours, throwing your own costume parties. You can even do bonfires. That is a big part of this holiday, but you have to do it safely. Please, please, please do not set your whole state on fire. You can also do apples, bobbing for apples on strings where you have to try to bite into them. There's actually a lot in this book around it, and I highly encourage you to check it out because, apples are harvestable at this time of the year. It's a symbol of Samhain, and so there's a lot of cool things you can do at your parties with apple games. You can go to cemeteries and clean graves. That's actually pretty popular. Just do so with respect. I'm going to link a video below of someone else who talks about like cemetery etiquette. I think it's very helpful and you should check it out if you ever think you're going to do something like that. Obviously, movies is like a huge tradition nowadays to watch a bunch of Halloween movies. We do that every year. There's a bunch we always go through. So make it part of your thing if it's not already. I feel like that's probably one of the most popular things people do nowadays. Now again, because of the Fae, because the veil was thin and Fae were coming up and like messing with everybody's stuff, there was a lot of like superstitions, a lot of protective things that people did, and one of those was that people would dress up as scary, fearsome creatures so that they would confuse the Fae to avoid getting themselves kidnapped or messed with. And this is where you see the start of the origins of trick-or-treating. Obviously, we went trick-or-treating as well. We went over to my mom's neighborhood because our neighborhood has no kids in it, no good candy. And he was Buzz Lightyear for Halloween this year. It was so cute, so much fun. I brought my butterbeer recipe from the last Sabbat over for trick-or-treating as well. Gosh, this recipe is so good. If you want to see it, check out the last Sabbat video. I absolutely love doing trick-or-treating. So Christians tried to come in and relabel it to All Saints Day or All Souls Day, and they tried to move it to November 2nd. Never really came together. And so when the Irish moved to the US in the 19th century, they brought all of this kind of like trick-or-treating and all of the traditions with them. So in the 1930s, there was a lot more pranking. It was a lot more of the tricks, not the treats. But by the 50s, trick-or-treating was in most like US cities. And it wasn't until like the 1970s that it actually got super commercialized. I found this super interesting because I just didn't realize how new the idea of like the American version of Halloween and trick-or-treating is. Now in the 80s, that's kind of when the more pagan, the more serious Wiccan side kind of made its resurgence, and people have been educating themselves more and more about that since the 80s. Trick-or-treating used to also be called mumming sometimes, which was a play on the idea of mummers theater. It was a type of theater back then. And it was also called souling, so mumming or souling. And you're basically walking around to people's houses, asking them for things. You might have literally been begging at that time. Some kids would go knock on doors to ask for money for like fireworks, apparently. Sometimes they would just offer up songs or prayers for the dead, or they'd be like seeking food. In France, they actually would ask for flowers so that they could go take them to their ancestors' graves. So now as you go trick-or-treating, hopefully you can understand the origins a little bit more.
Like I scored. I totally scored.
Samhain is over. We had such a great time. Trick-or-treating was like actually really warm. We had a great day, like perfect night for trick-or-treating. So we got to a lot of houses. Samhain like literally takes up all of October for me, so I'm like so ready to like hibernate, be done, head into November, and just not have a whole lot planned. That being said, I love Halloween. I love Samhain. I'm excited that this year that we did a little bit more like traditional, like Wiccan, pagan rituals, like the altar. Like I've always wanted to do that. I had an excuse now to get it started. Hopefully every year I can like add more decorations to it. And really, I don't think I would take anything out or do anything different for this Sabbat, which I know I've said like the opposite all the other Sabbats. I really liked spreading it out over the whole month. I had to do that anyway. I've said that for all the other Sabbats, but I actually did it for this one. And I think honestly it's the best way to do all of these, because there's no way you could do some of these things in just one night. Again, I look forward to actually being able to do these Sabbats and not have to like film at the same time. It kind of feels like I'm halfway doing them because I'm half doing it, half like filming and like trying to get the shots that I need and all of that. So this one obviously going to celebrate. I've been celebrating it forever, but I'm going to try to bring more of the reverent side of it, the silent, solemn side of like lighting a candle, trying to do a little bit more of those sort of things going into next year. So now we have our last Sabbat of the year, even though it's technically like the Sabbat was the start of the wheel of the year. I started with Imbolc because I didn't want to wait till Halloween to basically start the series. I was excited about it last year. So next is going to be Yule, which is like Christmas time, which we commonly associate it with. I'm really excited to read about this holiday and get into this book. So I've got another like month and a half. I have like Thanksgiving in between. But again, I will see you all in just a few seconds. Hello everyone, happy Yule, happy winter solstice. We are in our final Sabbat. It's crazy to me. I have a brand new camera and I'm really stoked about it. So I apologize if this next half of the video there's some weird stuff. This is actually my first time ever using my new camera, so I'm kind of like testing it out. Here, I want to show you. So I'll say it's got this flip out LCD screen. So as I'm recording myself, I can see myself in the camera. And then also it changes, so if I'm like filming something this way, I can see everything. I'm not sure how the mic is. We're gonna basically find that out later. But I have wanted a new camera for like a year. And I will have to thank my father-in-law for this, because he was like, well, hey, why don't you sell the camera that you were using? I was using the A6300, if anyone cares. And now I basically sold that and was able to get this actual, it's like a real like vlogging style camera. It's kind of made for vloggers. And I'm so stoked. I can't wait to see how this footage turns out. Anyway, let's get back to Yule. So Yule is also known as midwinter or winter solstice. And a lot of us obviously associate it with Christmas. And basically, in a nutshell, the winter solstice is when the days are shortest. So the night has become really, really long. You guys probably all noticed this. I think the sunset goes down at like 4:30. I hate it. And we just have really, really short days. And so basically, I guess it seems like we're kind of standing still for like 3 days around the winter solstice. And then finally our days start to get longer and longer and longer. So we're also halfway to summer because of that, and the summer solstice where the days are the longest. And a lot of the symbology behind the winter solstice is just understanding that it's like a dark moment. Things are dark, but you are waiting for the light to return. The sun is returning. So it's that hope and that holding the torch or holding the vision when times are darkest, if that makes sense. And this is very literal. Back in the day, you know, they would have to be surviving through winter, conserving resources, and just hoping that they can get through the winter into the spring. Obviously, we have the luxury now of just having homes, having a thermostat, being able to keep ourselves warm. We have food in the fridge, you know, we can go get honestly anything in season sort of at the grocery store. Like this has made me realize how privileged we are to live in the time that we are. I'm glad I was born at this time. I like slightly wonder if I chose to be here because I was too like whiny and like needed all the luxuries of living in the 21st century. For example, right now we are in the US and we are going through this massive, massive snowstorm, like temperatures dropping well below zero. That's not super normal for Colorado. I know that's like pretty common the more north you go, but that's really not normal for us. And we've had like frostbite warnings, which I don't think I ever remember experiencing any sort of warning like that. So I feel like this solstice we're even experiencing a little bit of that, like no, not symbolically, literally with the seasons. It's just super, super cold and we're having to like be careful and not go outside and like make sure that we have enough food for like 2 days. Which I know like for those of you up north, you're like, but it's interesting timing how this like big weather snowstorm showed up with the winter solstice. We've actually gotten a ton of snow already in between Halloween and Christmas. It's kind of been crazy. Like last year for Colorado, we actually had like no snow until like almost the end of December. It was like setting records. But it's interesting because now I'm a lot more aware of the light, and I'm a lot more aware of like how it affects me. Like one, our animals want to eat a lot earlier in the night, and they are totally on the schedule of the sun. Like we definitely affect that a little bit, especially because we stay up a little bit later and we have the TV and they're exposed to that. But it's interesting to see how they were affected, and then also us. Like I feel like I wanted to rush and get so many things done, and then as soon as it gets dark, I'm like, oh, day's over. And it's technically, you know, like not in some ways, but I'm trying to embrace this season of like understanding that, hey, maybe I could just like take a little break and not do as much work. When the sun goes down, maybe, hey, my day is over. And maybe, and this Yule book actually mentions that, in the sense of a lot of people are wondering, you know, with seasonal affective disorder, if people didn't try to fight it and if people kind of worked with it and rested more, if that would actually make things better. But yeah, it's super annoying because I need to film a lot of videos for y'all and I have to like get up earlier, and I can't film as much in a day because the sun sets and I'm losing light. And I'm glad now that I know that. I'm glad that I can now like kind of remember, okay, during these December, November, January times, I need to like try to batch my filming up front because I'm not gonna have a whole lot of daylight to film. And before we jump into the old ways of Yule and the new ways, I just kind of wanted to talk about this book and honestly how disappointed I was in it. I think this is the worst one out of all of them. And that is because there's just not a whole lot in here. Like, they mention Santa Claus, Saint Nick, for like a sentence. They don't even talk about like gingerbread houses and like where those origins come from. I think that the witch that wrote this was very like, I don't know, maybe she wasn't very like anti-Christianity, but she just didn't put like hardly any other traditions in there. So I felt like I knew more about Yule than this book had already told me, which is not saying a lot because I don't know a whole lot about Yule's origins. It's the one I'm most aware of. I've celebrated it just as long as I've celebrated Halloween. I've always celebrated it as Christmas, but it's always been one of those where I've questioned, you know, I'm like, where did Santa Claus come from? Where did these ideas come from? And inevitably, when you do a little bit of research, you'll find that, you know, Christians kind of adapted Christmas from a lot of like old religions and old beliefs. And that's just the truth of the matter, and that's what they did. However, what I've enjoyed about these series is that it covers Christianity. It covers, you know, what the Christians took and what they ended up making and doing with each Sabbath. And I'm really disappointed because I feel like this one hardly covered any other like religions or belief systems. Like, it definitely does, but not to the extent that the other Sabbath books did. So I feel like for this Sabbath, I don't have a whole lot of information to give. I think next year when it rolls around, I might rent out another book that's maybe just written by somebody else, because I have learned more on TikTok and Instagram about Yule than I did this book, which is sad. So I apologize if the stuff in this video doesn't seem like new information. I just feel like I don't like get a whole lot of that. And so we every year do a whole lot for Christmas time. We do so many traditions that honestly we have to like cycle through them every year. Like last year we went to the Gaylord Rockies. It's like a big convention center hotel and they have a bunch of Christmas stuff. This year we wanted to do things a little differently. We did end up going to a train ride up in Georgetown, Colorado, and this was like a train ride with Santa Claus. It was really short, but it was a ton of fun. They served us free food, we had drinks, and I would highly recommend it if you're ever in the Colorado area. We got the fancy carts and you don't always have to, like, they have the cheaper carts, but they had a deal going on, and so we did that for the first time. I've always wanted to do that, and my son was terrified of Santa, but we had a lot of fun. And unfortunately this year I couldn't do a whole lot with Christmas either because my sister graduated from college last week, so we ended up visiting Arizona for a couple days to see her graduate, so also a little sparse in that arena. But we are doing our traditional like Christmas with the family, like giving presents. I really do enjoy that tradition. I don't think you have to be Christian to necessarily give gifts and, you know, celebrate those things with those people. And so I am going to be visiting like my mom's side of the family one night, my dad's side of the family the other night, and then we're getting in a plane headed over to Missouri to visit my husband's side of the family. So Christmas is always extremely hectic because we're traveling and trying to meet so many family members. I would really prefer in the future for that not to be the case, but it's just, it is what it is right now. I wish I could slow down during the Christmas season. Like, Ultimately, I would love to just go to a beach and not do any Christmas related things, but I can't control that, and I can't control all of our family members wanting to see everybody. So it's hectic. It's like the busiest week I have of December, so I don't look forward to it in that way, but it ends up being really, really good quality time with my family. And a lot of why I mention that is that Yule and winter solstice is really supposed to be about solitude. It's about quiet, it's about introspection, going slowly. I feel like I do the exact opposite of that, but I wanted to make sure y'all knew kind of how you're supposed to celebrate, but it's a lot more introspective and quiet. A lot of people that celebrate the Sabbat actually just kind of do quiet rituals in their homes. So I'm going to talk about the old ways that the Sabbat was celebrated as well as some of the new ways. You're going to see a montage mishmash of everything we're doing to celebrate. It might not match up completely with what I'm talking about. I apologize. That's one thing I've failed at with these Sabbats, is trying to get things to match up with what I'm talking about. But a lot of the stuff we're just like not doing, or we don't have the time for. We're doing a lot of other things. So how this book is split up. Whoa. Did you see that, or is that just in my LCD? I just saw those lights flash. Okay. Anyways, how this book is split up, and all the Sabbat books out of the Llewellyn Sabbat Essential series are split up, is that first they show the old ways that the Sabbat or the holiday was celebrated, and then it shows the new ways. And so let's get into the old ways first. Again, remembering that a lot of the Sabbats were kind of based around like agricultural like calendars, and understanding like how to get ready for harvest and how to save and like survive the winter. And that's where we are at with Yule or winter solstice. It's about honoring the dark. It's about contemplating. Again, it's about the return of the sun, which you will see in a lot of like old cultures that celebrated this. And it was like the literal, the sunshine. But it also got translated, like when it got over into Christianity, to, you know, the birth of the sun. It's not just the sun, like the planet or the fireball, whatever it is, but it is the birth of the sun, like the son of God. So the themes are very similar, and they got translated over in that way. And I will say that this Sabbat is one of the most like heated ones out there. And I think that's because a lot of pagans want to claim that Christianity or Christians stole a lot of Christmas traditions, or Yule traditions, I should say, winter solstice traditions, and vice versa. Christians believe that they had it first. And so I've seen, there's like so much stuff online now that I'm kind of a little bit more in kind of the witchcraft community, and there's definitely more of like infighting about it. And personally, my opinion is, I don't think anyone can claim originality. Everyone should be looking at the facts and acknowledging the facts. But I don't think that getting mean towards other parties or other religions about it is going to be helpful at all. So the winter solstice is about death. It's about the longest, darkest night, but also about rebirth. So that's where you're going to see a lot of the theme, is around death and rebirth. And astrology-wise, the winter solstice, basically, our Earth sits on a tilt. We are not just like straight up and down. We sit on a tilt, and as the year goes on, it kind of moves. And basically, during the winter, us people in the northern hemisphere, we are turning further away from the sun. So that's why you get colder days. And that's also why the people in the southern hemisphere are celebrating summer solstice right now, because they're kind of on this butt end where they're getting more sun. And also the people on the equator not nearly as affected by all of this, if that makes sense. But you can totally see this because in the sky, the sun just kind of comes up and over on the side. It's not directly overhead like it is in summer, or almost directly overhead. So that's been really interesting for me to be aware of. It just kind of pops up over on the side and goes down on the side. That's why, again, those days are shorter. It doesn't take as long for it to cross kind of our horizon line. There's a ton of gods and gods associated with this season across all cultures. The most common one is the Oak King and the Holly King, and this is the time that the Holly King loses the battle to the Oak King. And that's why in summer it's switched, and the Holly King is the one that wins during summer. And it's like this constant back and forth battle. The Romans celebrated a holiday called Saturnalia. And this is in several of these books. I'm kind of confused as to when exactly it happened. But basically it was kind of like the Feast of Fools. Like you would do a lot of like debauchery, and it was kind of like a finger to the church. Like you just, lots of trickery and stuff like that. If this book is right, it says that that is where the history of like the winter solstice came from, and kind of the 12 days of Christmas, or the 12 days of the solstice. And so the 12 days of Christmas start on the solstice and end on the 1st. Some people do it a little bit differently, and I think they go from the 25th to the 5th. Yes, and basically all of these cultures would drink, you know, be merry, give gifts. Not all of them would do the gift giving, but a lot of times you're putting out food to gods and goddesses to thank them for, you know, what you have, and to ask them to keep you protected throughout the rest of winter. And apparently at the end of this 12 days is when you were supposed to like take down your decorations, or else like it was like superstitious not to. Like you would have bad luck if you didn't take it down on the 1st or the 5th. I know lots of us don't do that. We keep it up as long as we want. I've had my tree up since friggin' November, and it was the biggest mistake ever. It has been the #1 timeout cause because my son is throwing food in it. He's pulling ornaments off of it. I've tried to like redo it for this video. It looked so good when I put it up, and now it's just like, I can't wait to take it down because I have a toddler. And again, this wasn't clear in the book, but I think that the Yule log is kind of one of the origins of like the Christmas tree. And basically what you would do is the town would light kind of a sacred fire, and this fire was supposed to last through that longest night of the year. And what people in the town would do is they would bring their own logs, they would decorate them, they would put like good wishes on them, kind of like little ornaments, and they would put it in that communal fire, take it back to their house, and you had to kind of keep it up all night. And it was also like a bad sign if you woke up, or bad omen, and that fire had gone out. So you would have had a good year if the fire stayed on or lit all night. So that's about it for the old ways that I was able to gather from this book. I know there's more, I've seen more. However, I don't want to speak to what I haven't like put research in. So I'm sorry if you're really like wanting to learn more from me in this video. Let's get to the new ways. The book hardly even mentioned stockings, and I was like, I wanted to learn about this. So I'm like, I'm very frustrated with this book. I think one of the coolest facts that I've learned from this book, however, was that we used to only have 10 months in the year. We didn't have 12. It ended at October, and, it ended at December. And January and February were not a thing. The Romans just randomly inserted January and February into our calendar. So if you look up the meaning of December, it actually means 10th month, which is confusing now because it's our 12th month. So I thought that was super cool. And I think obviously, you know, Yule, winter solstice is super close to the new year as well. One thing that I always do every single year is I get a new calendar. And this year I got it from one of my favorite artists that I follow, on Instagram. And I just wanted to show it to you because she designs designs of goddesses. So let me show you. So we got a sticker, a lovely note. This is her handle. She has a lot of cool stuff for sale. But this is like my 2023 calendar, and it's a bunch of goddesses. So let me show you. So in the back, it has a description of each month and the goddesses, but I'll just flip through this really quickly. November. Yeah, so super cool. I always keep a calendar right here. Wasn't a fan of this one. I think the best way to get calendars nowadays is to buy it from artists online because Amazon calendars just suck. Hi, duck sitting in our backyard. That was weird. What are you doing, duck? Hi. Hi, kitty kitty. You cold kitty kitty. So I also wanted to give an update on this. I know most people probably don't care, but I know part of this series we've been following along our journey of getting this camper built. Obviously, we were not going to rent this out during winter, especially with like an outdoor toilet. So we kind of just paused working on it. We're almost done, but not quite. Really, I just need to finish up the curtains. We have a table to install. We've already got some of the decorations and kitchen things that we need to get in here, towels. We just need to get a bed in here, a table, and just finish up a lot of little things. So I think it's gonna be ready by spring, but we're not bothering with it until it gets warmer.
Oh, it's baby!
It is you. Now, a lot of the new ways I feel like a lot of people already know about. Like, I feel like Christmas is a very like common celebration, and a lot of the themes and stuff around it is obviously very similar to winter solstice because it was a lot derived from that. So a lot of pagans and Wiccans, they will do like circles, they will do spells, they will do Yule logs and offerings. Again, it's a very like introspective time for a lot of folks. I have actually done a winter solstice spiral before, and I'll throw in pictures of videos of that. That was actually when I went up to the Milo farm retreat. So I have done probably the most with winter solstice before this. Your dreams during this time are supposed to be prophetic, so pay attention to those. But a lot of the recurrent themes are working with the light, the sun returning, feasting, gift giving, playing games. So you're probably very familiar with doing that already. A lot of people will obviously decorate the inside of their homes. They did this way back in the day, but obviously they do a lot of red and green colors. This is to represent the evergreens and the holly that grow around this time. You also see a lot of golds and whites. Golds are kind of a representation of the sun. White is a representation of light, purity, like renewal, which is kind of perfect because my Christmas tree, I've always liked the white and gold kind of theme. So I unintentionally am celebrating the sun and the light. Divination is also part of this Sabbat. It's talking to the deceased that have left us, because this Sabbat is about death and rebirth. I actually had 3 Christmas parties this year that I was hired to like do private readings at, or like one-on-one tarot card readings. That is like super not normal for me. The most I've ever had is like 1 in December. So it was kind of nice to do so many this December. But a lot of what we are choosing to do for the holiday is just stuff we've enjoyed doing in the past, / stuff that I want to do with my son that I haven't done yet, like the train that we went on. So one thing that I really wanted to do was build a gingerbread house. It's been a long time since I've done one, and Target for some reason just had the coolest gingerbread houses this year. So we grabbed like a beach house, and I just let my son just play with it. He mostly just ate it, honestly, and we kind of built it together, and we did that one night, kind of leading up to the winter solstice. Again, very little mention of where gingerbread stuff comes from. A little disappointed. But I had a lot of fun making this, and he calls it his cookie house now. Now, a lot of our celebrating actually kind of happens after the winter solstice. I'm kind of like, honestly, I have to work a lot. I have a reading today, so I'm not really doing much on the actual winter solstice. I am going to do a tarot spread that is out of this book. But for the most part, everything happens for us afterwards. And so you'll see this now, but some of the things that we have planned are we are going to my mom's house first and celebrating with my mom's side of the family. We're going to be giving each other gifts and basically just hanging out. And I think we're gonna maybe decorate cookies as well. But I'm sure that's gonna be a ton of fun. I love spending this time with my family. Then we're gonna be visiting my dad's side of the family very briefly. That side of my family has gotten so big that mostly we don't do gifts anymore and we just play like games. But really at the end of that day, which is Christmas Eve, I want to be back home to celebrate, just like with me and my husband and my son, because my favorite memories of Christmas was, you know, opening my presents, playing with my siblings, like being in my pajamas all day, eating junk all day, and just like not having to go anywhere or do anything. And unfortunately, we really haven't been able to do that with my son at all yet, because we've always been traveling on Christmas. And this is the first year I'm kind of like forcing that carved out time for us, and I feel horrible, but at the same time, like I get so worn out by this season, and I always feel like I'm giving to everyone else, and I'm really not like doing the things I want to do. And by the end of the holidays, I'm always like losing my sanity. I hate it. So hopefully we are gonna have a really nice dinner together. I wanted to make us some fancy blood orange drinks, and then we are going to open presents here and just hang out before we have to head to Missouri. One cookie for Santa. How many cookies? Should we give him 2 or 3? Yeah. All right, 3 cookies. Do you want to go put the plate on the table for Santa?
Put the plate on the table.
Okay, should we get milk now?
Now we need to get milk for Santa.
Let's go get milk. Hey, I'll give you a cookie, okay? I think that's enough milk for Santa. Okay, very careful, walk very slowly.
Good job. Leave that for Santa, and then Santa will get you presents.
Alright, Santa's gonna come tonight.
Santa came, he ate your cookies, and he drank the milk. Do you remember? We left those last night. And he left some stuff for you.
Who drank that?
Yeah, somebody came in.
Hey, who ate all those cookies?
Did Santa come and eat the cookies? It's like my crumbs now.
Yeah.
Is that apple chew?
And then on Christmas Day, we are hopping on an airplane. We are going over to Missouri to visit my husband's side of the family, do all the Christmassy stuff over there, and then we'll be back home in time for the New Year's. Oh, and I will say too, while we are in Missouri, we are going to see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. My mother-in-law got us tickets, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to do that. I'm so thankful that she got that. You want to show me how you make some food? You make me, can I have an egg, please?
Yes. Some eggs. Some eggs.
I'm being served food right now, but I wanted to show you the one taro spread that is in here, and it's a shape of a Christmas tree. Here's the solstice tree spread. I think for brevity, I'm actually going to do the midwinter solstice spread. It's just a little bit shorter, but if you need to pause and take a look at these pages, feel free to do so you can do it yourself. Also, I'm using the Seasons of the Witch Yule Oracle. There's a whole series of Seasons of the Witch Oracle cards, and they're each based on a different Sabbat. I found each, of course, after each Sabbat, but I think they have Yule, Samhain, and Beltane printed. Mabon is like in the works, but these coordinate perfectly. Like, they're so well researched. They go along with each Sabbat. I would say if you're really into learning about these Sabbats, definitely get one of these. So I'm going to use this. Okay, so card number 1 you actually pull for yourself. This is a signifier, and you basically are looking for a card to you that represents like being in deep contemplation. Contemplation and hibernation. This one just felt apt for me for some stuff that I'm going through. So, and the second card is the card of contemplation. If winter is a time of reflection, evaluation, and contemplation, how is this affecting you? Yeah, that's kind of accurate. storm. It's been a little bit stressful lately. And card number 3 is the card of celebration and action. Having reflected on the past year, how will you move forward? What's next? Dove medicine. Ooh, I'm gonna have to look up the meaning of this one. All right, we have dove medicine as forgiveness, freedom, and new beginnings. Not holding on to the past as a type of prison. I would say this card is pretty heavily about forgiveness for me. And so that's the action that I need to take in the new year. The 4th card is the card of light, realization, and success. As the sun reappears and light returns to the world, where will it find you? I love these questions. Oh, family. This is what I want, y'all. I will say my husband and I shouldn't say my husband. Well, he sort of does, but I'm really wanting another one of these. I don't know why. I'm crazy. Do you want a baby sister or baby brother?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That is where the light returns to my life after doing some forgiveness and working through the storm that I'm currently in. That's a great spread, actually. I might use that in the future. Now, I wanted to do one of the like spells out of this book. There's one for bringing in snow, but I think we're good on snow. We've got plenty, so I'm just gonna skip that one. But I'm definitely gonna keep it in mind and like take a photo of it because this is a library copy for like future months if we like really need snow. We've been inside a lot and having to entertain inside a lot. It's a stressful part of winter. So as always, I like to end these Sabbat videos with just kind of like recapping the Sabbat. I feel like I already kind of explained this one. I feel like I just didn't get a whole lot of information out of this book. Really bummed about that. Again, I feel like I've learned more on TikTok, more on Instagram about this solstice than this actual book. I don't know how much that would have changed anything, honestly, because we have so many like Christmas traditions that are already set in stone, so this one is not very like, I don't know if we would have done a whole lot differently. However, looking at this Sabbath series as a whole, like I'm so grateful that I did it. I feel like I learned so much about Wiccans, neo-pagans, pagans, and what they believe and don't believe, and I just feel like it was educational, but it was also fun to kind of incorporate a lot of the things that they believed into these vlogs and into our holidays. I think it's definitely helped me get way more in touch with the seasons and definitely nature as well, and just being able to understand like the timing of things, like when are the leaves gonna fall, when are the days gonna get shorter, you know, so that I can film a lot quicker, when should I plant plants for the year. Like I feel like that was all stuff that I didn't know before, and it still definitely, you know, has a place in my life even now. I think this has also given me the opportunity to look at like my life symbolically in relation to the seasons and understand that like my life can be like the seasons, and that, you know, I can have slower periods, faster periods, times where I want to hibernate, times where I want to go. I think one of my other biggest takeaways is like I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised that we never learned about this in school. This was like not something that they like, you know, taught us. You heard about other religions and you heard about how people celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas, and you know, when all of these events come up, like even the kids nowadays, they'll celebrate like the Chinese New Year. There's always like a spotlight shown on a bunch of different religions in school settings from an academic, like educational standpoint. I have not seen that though with the Wiccan, the pagan, all of these religions, and I'm honestly super surprised because they've been around for a long time, but I'm again not surprised because I think there's a lot of stigmas around witches, and almost everyone I've talked to thinks they believe in like Satan and stuff, and like just total misinformation. So I do hope that one day that will be taught in schools, just again from like an academic standpoint. I think if we're being taught all religions, I don't know why these ones specifically are being excluded, you know? Honestly, I think it's just that people don't know about it, lack of education. So I hope that these videos helped. If you happen to be in that realm, I know I'm definitely not an expert on any of this. This basically was my first time going through each of these Sabbats and learning as I go. And going into next year, I think I will definitely celebrate a good majority of them actually, which I did not think I was going to say. I think there's some that I probably won't even like touch, like Lunasaw again. I'm really excited to do these again next year because I'm not going to be filming them. So I won't have to be like simultaneously worried about like getting footage and like celebrating the holiday. My biggest complaint with these books were that they were written by different authors. Really wish it would have been a little bit more consistent. However, they are a little bit older and I feel like I've seen something from Llewellyn, you know, like a more condensed version or all 8 of them. I do know there's a version that you can buy that's specific to that year, where it has all 8 of them. I think it's like a Sabbat almanac or something, but I don't think it teaches you about it. It just kind of like is a refresher for people who already know about it. So if that is you, it might be worth checking out that. However, if you really do want like a complete introduction, I do think that these books are great if you don't know anything, because that's where I was, and I feel like I'm pretty educated about it. I like literally only one book I would say was bad. So I think they also sell them in the sets, and you can get all of those in my links down below. So I wanted to end this by saying thank you so much for those of you who have watched every single one of these and stuck around with me for them. Did my Christmas tree just turn off? I think it did. I know that these videos have not been like popular on my channel. However, I've made them for me. Like, I have to make videos on my channel that I enjoy making, and this was like one of my highlights of honestly the whole year. I felt like I really branched out, did something new, learned things, tried out new family traditions, and I think we're definitely going to take some of those family traditions and continue them. So if you have followed me through this whole entire journey, let me know what you've thought about it in the comments down below if you found it helpful. I really want to be able to do like kind of like consistent vlogs like this that are kind of spaced out throughout the year. I am going to be sad that I won't have that for next year, but obviously I'll still have vlogs, and I've got a new camera to do it, and it's been wonderful, honestly, today working with this camera. So excited about it. I hope you all had a fantastic 2022. I know you're watching this in 2023, and I hope that your new year is fantastic and your 2023 is fantastic. Alrighty guys, bye. Look, there you go.
Cheers.